Hey, it's Beata from BA English Coaching and welcome to our next lesson.
Hello, everybody.
We are doing a lesson about,
How to use shall.
as always, we have got three amazing quotes.
Okay.
And because I've got David with me here, he is, as I said previously, a walking encyclopedia. So when I showed him the quotes, he was like, yes, I can say something about this and I can say something about this. So you will have a bit of a history as well.
All right.
So the first one,
Yeah, the first one is we shall never surrender, which, as many of you will know, is a very famous quotation from Sir Winston Churchill, who said this at the beginning of the Second World War, when Britain was threatened with invasion from Europe. So he was very insistent. He said, we shall fight them on the beaches, we should fight them in the streets, we shall fight them in the hills, we shall never surrender.
yeah, so we've got this very positive and
It's kind of inspirational
Yes.
as well as motivational. Yeah.
and then the second one I like personally is these two shall pass. So if you go through bad times, just remember that these two shall pass and there is always a light at the end of the tunnel, and even the bad things, there's always an end to them and nothing will last forever. So this is my favorite quote using shall. And then
The third one was a very famous quotation by the civil rights leader Martin Luther King, who in 1964, I think it was, led a march in Washington, USA, to the Capitol in Washington, D.C., encouraging people to stand up for their rights. And he said, we shall overcome.
we've got these three beautiful inspirational quotes using the verb shall. And we want you to be inspired at the beginning of this lesson. But before we continue, we would like you to think about the use of shall. So from these quotes, when do you think we use shall? We always teach our grammar points in context. For today's lesson, we've got a conversation. And since it's winter outside in England, and it is sunny actually.
Sunny but cold.
We've got a conversation. We want you to listen first, and then you can always pause the video to practice your pronunciation, expression, speed, and intonation. And also think about the use of shall. What shall we do today, David? It's a lovely sunny day.
It would be nice to go out somewhere. The forecast says temperatures will rise to 30 degrees. Shall we take a picnic?
That sounds good. What about a picnic at the seaside? We could get a bus there.
How much will it cost? I haven't got very much money. Shall we see how much money we have?
It isn't far. It doesn't cost much.
Everywhere will be so crowded today because it's a bank holiday weekend. The journey will take ages.
Come on, David. I shall go without you if you are going to be so miserable.
Okay then.
When do we use shall in English? Have a look at these examples. Have a look at this conversation. Think about the quotes we discussed at the beginning of this video and pause the video and think, when do we use shall in English? So we hope you have come up with some ideas when to use shall. So when do we use shall and will? We have done a separate video about will. Since will and shall, we use them when we are simply giving information about the future or talking about possible future events which are not already decided or obviously not on the way. So some examples, David, please.
Okay, I will. I shall probably be home late tonight. We shall know the results soon.
So in these cases, you can use both of them. So only when you talk about the future. Then we can also use shall when we talk about offers and suggestions. So when we want to find out if something is a good thing to do or something is a good idea. Some examples.
Okay, so an offer would be, shall I pack up your shopping for you? Oh, thank you. Shall I carry your bag? Or you could use it as a suggestion. Shall we all go out together? Good idea. Shall we get a taxi? What time shall we meet? So this is something that you intend to do and you're using it to positively emphasize that you would like to help someone.
And I think we need to mention something here. There is a difference between shall and will.
So if you're using the word shall, as I said a minute ago, it's something that you don't say very often, but it's a way of emphasizing a definite commitment to do something positive rather than just using will all the time. So it's used less often than will, but it's more of a positive statement.
Use shall to express a personal, subjective, and more emphatic view of the future event. You know, David, the quote you said at the beginning, we shall overcome. What's the difference if I said we will overcome?
Well, it's interesting, Beata, because in the original quotation by Martin Luther King, he actually set that phrase to music, and the community that he was leading in the civil rights movement, black people in the USA in the early 60s, were subjected to racial discrimination. And they set that phrase to music, and we shall overcome is a much more dramatic and emphatic way of saying something compared to we will overcome. They mean the same thing, but if you use shall instead of will, it's something that is very personal to you and you can use it to be much more emphatic.
As David said, it's not so much about the meaning, because the meaning is technically the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just the personal involvement, the personal side of it that makes the difference.
You're making a personal investment in wanting something to happen, and you are really telling somebody that you really believe that this is the way forward, this is the way that you should go ahead.
And we have more examples to maybe further clarify this.
So if we compare the following phrases, I'll or I will give you a hand, okay, which is quite a normal thing to say, everyday thing to say. But if you say, I shall give you a hand, that's more of an insistence that you want something to happen. It could be that you might want to help an elderly person who is used to being quite independent and is not used to receiving help, but is clearly in need of help. So you would say, I shall give you a hand, means that you insist that you help them because it's quite obvious that they're not able to do the things that perhaps they used to do in the past.
So this is the thing when you are learning the language, you can say both, I will or I shall, but this is exactly what we are trying to do, to give you examples of...
Okay, so English is full of different shades of meaning, a different shade of meaning, which is quite difficult for language learners to appreciate the difference. So if you say will and shall, technically, as we said, they're the same. But if you use shall less often, it has more effect and it has a shade of meaning which is more emphatic than just using will.
And it also shows that you understand the language. You know the difference between will and shall. And this is what we are trying to do, to explain the shade between these two verbs.
Absolutely. So as you increase your fluency in English, you will be able to use these different shades of meaning in the correct context.
Exactly. Yeah. And we've got another pair.
Okay. So we'll see them tomorrow. In other words, we will see them tomorrow. That's a fact. Okay, just a statement. But we shall see them tomorrow. I have decided it could be that you've been postponing this trip for a while. because of COVID or restrictions or some other reason that you can't make the trip, but you have now positively decided that you want to make the trip, so you shall go and see somebody. We shall go and see them tomorrow. Yeah?
So that's, I think I really like this aspect of grammar, because that shows that it's also the choice of the verb. That makes the language beautiful, I think. I think these kind of examples, doesn't it?
Absolutely, because English is full of these very interesting alternative verbs that you can use. And they're there for historical reasons, because the language has evolved from Norman French, from the north of France, as well as from Anglo-Saxon. And you very often have verbs and nouns which technically mean the same thing, but the nuances, the shades of meaning are more appropriate using one word instead of another word.
And talking of history, now I think, but then please feel free to comment if you disagree, we don't think that shall is used in American English.
So we believe, perhaps, if you watch American movies compared to English movies, then that might be something you might want to look out for. How many American speakers have you heard using the word shall?
Yes, and you can let us know in the comments below, because all the grammar books, they say that we do not use, the Americans and the people who speak with the American English, they do not use shall. But
interesting. So that's one to look out for.
Yes, definitely,
Okay.
and let us know. Well, let's have a look at the forms. It's pretty easy, I think, with shall. We use shall only with two persons, the first one. So only with I and only with we. And we use shall plus infinitive.
So we shall be on holiday in July. I shall be late tomorrow. I shall know the exam results soon.
How do we form questions? We swapped the order.
Okay, so for example, shall I call the doctor for you? Shall we leave before it gets busy?
Again, only with the first person singular and first person plural. And what about the negatives? That's something else we have discussed. Normally, the grammar books, they tell you that shall is not used in negatives, isn't it? But if you see the form, it will be shall plus not, shan't. And David has a very interesting and funny example that he said, well, actually, I heard this. Where did you hear this?
Okay,
Negative form.
So the negative form of shall plus not is shan't. Now, if you imagine that you are a very young child and you are being quite naughty and you are disobeying your mum or your dad, and if you imagine if you have young children, you listen to them, the first thing they will say is they will not say, I don't want to do something, it's too complicated. They'll say, I shan't do it. And it's naturally saying the negative shall plus not.
But David thinks that this is maybe the only example where probably you heard it.
I think usually native adult speakers do not use this negative form. It's usually only used by
Naughty children.
Naughty children, juveniles, kids who don't want to do something.
Let us know. Do you agree? Have you heard this used in English in real life? Because the grammar books can tell you one thing, and then real life can be very different.
Because always remember, language changes and we change with it. So we're open to any comments where you agree or disagree with us.
Yes, definitely. And there is something else we would like to mention. Is there any other form of shall that we can encounter, we can see in written form?
Okay, there's a very interesting example from Old English or Archaic English. For those of you who are interested in biblical quotations, if you say shalt, you may have noticed in the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not steal. We didn't say shall not, we say shalt not. So thou shalt not steal. But it's not something that we would say or use in modern English.
As David said, it's archaic, but if you happen to see it, then you know it is the same thing as shall, and the meaning is exactly the same. We have come to the end of this lesson, and hopefully you have enjoyed it and you have learned and you know the differences between will and shall when it comes to the shade in meaning, and you will be able to use it confidently in your everyday life. If you have enjoyed this video, please like it, share it, and subscribe to our channel. We started with a quote, and we always end on a positive note, that we will always would like to leave you motivated and inspired. There is something else we should all do, and it is...
Okay, so Mother Teresa of Calcutta once said, "We shall never know all the good that a simple smile can do." So keep happy, keep smiling, and see you next time.
And don't be the same, be awesome. Bye.
Bye.